The law offices of Harrison and Associates exuded old money. From the mahogany-paneled walls to the self-important oil portraits of long-dead partners, everything in the space reeked of inherited wealth and generational entitlement. I sat alone outside the conference room, sinking slightly into an overstuffed leather chair, watching as my siblings arrived one by one, each intentionally avoiding eye contact. Michael was first, dressed to impress in a tailored Italian suit, his smug grin already in place, the same expression he'd worn for the last 40 years as Dad's golden boy. Elizabeth swept in next, cloaked in designer labels and dripping diamonds. Her fingers danced over her phone with practiced speed, her attention as unavailable as her affection. Then came Thomas, slouching in with bedhead and a hangover you could practically smell. He gave off the air of someone permanently 5 minutes late to his own life. "Miss Carter," the receptionist said, her voice edged with discomfort. "Mr. Harrison says the reading is for heirs only." I didn't need to look up to feel the smug satisfaction radiating from my siblings. This was exactly what they'd anticipated, no orchestrated. Funny thing about that. I rose smoothly, picking up my briefcase. "That's fine. I have a separate appointment with Mr. Harrison." Michael turned, already smirking. "Sarah, don't embarrass yourself. We all know Dad cut you out years ago." "Ah, yes. The infamous exile. All because I refused to toe the family line and join the real estate empire. I chose to build my own future, and Dad, in his fury, declared I was no longer his daughter. But while they were busy clinging to Daddy's legacy, I was quietly building one of my own." "I'm actually right on time," I said, glancing at my watch. 10 o'clock sharp." The conference room door opened, and James Harrison himself stepped out. His eyes widened slightly when he saw me, but he quickly recovered his professional calm. "Miss Carter," he said, "thank you for coming. Please, all of you, come in." Michael's smile vanished. "Jim, she's not supposed to be here. Dad was very clear." "About the will," Harrison interrupted smoothly. "Yes, but Miss Carter has some information relevant to the estate. We'll address that first." I walked in and took a seat directly across from my siblings. The leather creaked as I set my briefcase on the gleaming conference table. "Before we begin the reading," Harrison said, "Miss Carter has requested a few minutes to present some documents." "This is absurd," Elizabeth snapped, finally glancing up from her phone. She was disinherited. "She's just here to cause problems, as usual." I smiled and began pulling out a stack of neatly organized folders. "Actually, Liz, I'm here to save everyone some time. Before we dive into what Dad left behind, we should discuss what he actually still owned when he died." Thomas blinked, slow to catch up. "What are you talking about?" "He owned everything. The apartments, the office buildings, the shopping centers." "Did he?" I asked, sliding the first folder across the table. "Because these property deeds tell a different story." Michael grabbed the folder and began reading. His face drained of color. This can't be right." "Oh, but it is," I said, placing more documents on the table. "While you were all busy running Dad's company into the ground, I was quietly buying up his assets. Through shell companies, investment groups, trusts. Didn't it ever occur to you to wonder why your biggest competitors were suddenly faceless corporations?" Elizabeth's fingers trembled as she flipped through the documents. "Riverside Apartments, Maxwell Office Park, Highland Shopping Complex. These are all owned by Carter Investment Group. I finished for her. My company. Well, one of them." "That's impossible," Michael stammered. "Those are billion-dollar properties." "They are," I nodded, "and they've been mine for years. Dad was so busy being angry at me for not joining the family business, he didn't realize I was outbuilding it." Harrison cleared his throat. "This is precisely why Miss Carter is here. She now owns approximately 85% of what was presumed to be part of the estate." Silence. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Thomas, finally sobering, whispered, "How? Remember when Dad hit those cash flow problems 3 years ago? When he started selling off properties to keep the business afloat?" I leaned back in my chair, letting it all settle in. "I was the buyer. First Riverside Apartments, purchased through Highland Investment Partners. Then Maxwell Office Park, acquired via Summit Enterprises. And finally, Highland Shopping Complex. By then, He was practically giving things away. But the family business, Michael sputtered, is basically a management firm now, I said. And it manages properties that belong to me. Congratulations. You've all been working for me for the past 3 years. Elizabeth's shock turned rapidly to calculation. Classic Liz. Dadswell can challenge this, she said sharply. We'll prove you exploited him. No, you won't, Harrison said, cutting her off. I reviewed every transaction. Fair market value. Completely legal. Miss Carter simply outmaneuvered you all. Did Dad know? Thomas asked quietly. I paused, emotion flickering before I shut it down. Yes. I told him 2 weeks before he died. Want to know what he said? They leaned in, despite themselves. He laughed. I said softly. Actually laughed. Said he should have known the daughter who refused to work for him would be the one to beat him at his own game. Michael's face was now a furious shade of purple. This is a setup. Some elaborate manipulation. Would you like to see the bank transfers? I offered. The sale contracts. Rental income projections. It's all here. I slid the final stack of documents across the table and sat back, watching the world they thought they owned crumble, brick by golden brick. While you 3 were pretending to be real estate moguls, I said, my voice calm and measured, I was quietly building an actual empire. Elizabeth scoffed. But you run that tiny little investment firm downtown. I smiled. That tiny little office is the headquarters of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Just because I don't feel the need to flaunt my wealth doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Dad finally understood that, just before the end. Harrison cleared his throat again, bringing the room back to order. Perhaps now is a good time to proceed with the will. I nodded and leaned back, folding my hands in my lap. Showtime. He began, his tone neutral and practiced. To my children, Michael, Elizabeth, and Thomas, I leave my remaining business interests and properties, which, as Miss Carter has made clear, consist primarily of the management company and a few smaller holdings. Silence. Michael blinked rapidly. Elizabeth went pale. Even Thomas seemed to sober up. Then Harrison continued, To my daughter, Sarah. I felt their collective shock. They hadn't even considered I might still be included. I leave my private art collection, all personal properties, and, most importantly, an apology. You proved me wrong, and I've never been happier to be proven wrong in my life. Elizabeth's phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the polished table. The art collection, she whispered. But that's worth more than what's left of the business. I nodded, a small smile curving my lips. Yes, I know. Ironic, isn't it? This can't be legal, Michael said, standing suddenly. I'm calling our attorneys. Feel free, I replied, collecting my documents with a deliberate calm. But before you do, you might want to check the management company's contracts. All those properties you've been overseeing. Their agreements are up for renewal next month. The weight of that sentence hung in the air. Without those contracts, their entire company would be little more than office space and a family name. You wouldn't, Thomas said, his voice hoarse. We're family. Family. I let out a low laugh, cold and sharp. Was it family when you backed Dad cutting me out? When you mocked my little investment firm? When you whispered in boardrooms that I wasn't competent enough to make it on my own? I stood, straightening my jacket. But you're right, we are family. Which is why I'm offering each of you jobs. Real positions. No nepotism. Entry level, like everyone else. Entry level. Elizabeth looked as if she might actually faint. But we have experience. No, I corrected. You have practiced spending Dad's money. Now you'll learn how to earn it. Across the table, Harrison coughed, clearly hiding a grin. After 30 years watching this family's drama, today must have felt like season finale material. Michael's voice came out hollow. The management contracts. How much? We'll discuss it Monday, I said. My office. 9 a.m. Don't be late. I'm not as forgiving as Dad was about punctuality. As I walked toward the door, I paused and turned back. Oh, and Elizabeth, about that penthouse Dad gifted you for your wedding? Rent's going up. Market rates, you understand. Business is business. The last thing I heard as I left the room was Thomas muttering, Does anyone else feel like we've been playing Monopoly while she's been playing chess? In the elevator, I let out the breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Dad's last words echoed in my mind. I was wrong, Sarah. So wrong. You didn't reject the family business. You reinvented it. My phone buzzed. A message from Mayo. How'd it go? Just as expected, I replied. Tell HR to prepare 3 entry-level training packets. And contact building management about Elizabeth's penthouse. Time to adjust the rent. Another message. Ruthless. I love it. Lunch to celebrate? Can't. Meeting the art appraiser about Dad's collection. Turns out he had better taste than his children. As I stepped into the sunlight, the city skyline stretched before me. Half those buildings were mine now, under one company name or another. Not bad for the daughter they wrote off as a failure. My phone buzzed again. Michael. I declined the call and texted back. All business matters through proper channels. See you Monday. Bring your resume. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's rising so high they can't even see you anymore. And sometimes, the greatest legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you build while everyone else waits around for their inheritance. Dad understood that, finally. Now it was their turn to learn the lesson the hard way. As I drove back to my real office, not the storefront they thought was mine, I smiled. Monday morning was going to be interesting. After all, nothing teaches humility quite like realizing the sister you dismissed as a failure has been your landlord all along.